Hello, Internet friend. Today on Value Side, while the world waits for Iran's retaliation, the mullahs play a long game. I'm David Ravel. What's a mullah, you might ask? Well, a mullah in Iran is the honorific title for the Muslim clergy who lead that country. And barely a month ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke before the joint session of Congress. The air was electric. As Netanyahu declared, quote, "In the Middle East, Iran is virtually behind all of the terrorism, all of the turmoil, all of the chaos, and all of the killing." Unquote. Now the assembled representatives rose in thunderous applause. Here was a cause that all, or at least those in the chamber that evening, could agree on. At just the time that America, under the increasingly feeble president, could show the world that it is still the indispensable country, Iran would become the target of not just Israel, but also the United States. While many American citizens do not want to see war in the Middle East, U.S. leadership is united on this issue, or at least they have sufficient votes to pass any required legislation, provide weapons, munitions, and other funds needed for potential conflict. While the ovations were no doubt gratifying, it was the direct support of American leadership that Netanyahu traveled to Washington to get. As Time magazine noted, Netanyahu received unanimous support across the political spectrum, from President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to Donald Trump. All of the American political elite is behind Israel. With America firmly on his side, Netanyahu ordered the assassination of first Hezbollah's senior military leader in Lebanon, Faoud Shakur, and then Hamas's political leader and chief negotiator, Ismail Haniyeh. This 1-2 punch left the world stunned as the realization hit that the Middle East was on the edge of all-out war. It was presumed that both Hezbollah and Iran would immediately retaliate. Such political assassinations do not go unanswered in this part of the world. Ever the chess master, Netanyahu first positioned his assets, principally the Israeli Defense Force and the formidable United States military. Then he lit the fuse that would plunge the region into war. The world waited. Then nothing. Although we've seen Hezbollah launch drones and missiles from their bases in southern Lebanon, there's been no response at all from Iran. Strange. Doesn't Iran know that the U.S. and Israel are ready for war? What are the mullahs waiting for? Now, speculation on the internet, and I suspect in Washington, are all over the board. Suggested reason for Iran's delay include that they may need to position recently acquired Russian anti-aircraft components, such as the S-400 and the electronic warfare systems now rumored to be in Iran's hand. Or they may need extra training for the soldiers and technicians to operate this new equipment. Or they're waiting for additional reconnaissance on locating Israeli and American targets. Finally, it may be that Iran fears facing a formidable force such as the combined IDF and U.S. forces. Any of these could be the reason Iran delays its response. However, a simpler explanation may be in play here: logistics. For months now, the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier has been in the Gulf of Oman. Earlier this month, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered the USS Abraham Lincoln to join the Roosevelt and increase America's battle power in the region. Each carrier battle group consists of the nuclear-powered carrier itself and possible nuclear submarines, which of course do not require refueling. However, the rest of the associated fleet, the fighter wing, the surveillance aircraft, the helicopters and surface vessels, all require fuel. The last American nuclear-powered surface ship, incidentally, was retired back in 1995. Additionally, personnel must eat, weapons and munitions must be replenished, and port maintenance is required for significant repairs and refits. This comes when the Navy is not operating at maximum capacity. The first place American ships look for resupply is the Navy's Sealift Command, those ships and sailors who are at the heart and soul of at-sea logistics. But just last week, the U.S. Navy Institute reported that the Navy plans to, quote, sideline, unquote, 17 of its most important supply vessels because they simply don't have the sailors to staff them. This is the real-world impact of recruiting goals that have been unmet for years. At the same time that the Navy faces staffing problems, logistics support from local ports is becoming problematic. Now, the U.S. has recently renewed its agreement with Bahrain to continue supporting the Navy's Fifth Fleet. Additionally, the Sultan of Oman permits air and naval support for the Americans. But beyond those two, America may find it difficult to gas up at any of the other Middle Eastern ports, especially if war breaks out with Israel, a country that few of the Middle East supports. Now, the Iranians see this. They know that America and Israel could find themselves isolated in any potential conflict. Remember that Israel is also reliant on fuel, primarily flowing through Turkey, for its own supplies. So while American forces in the Middle East are indeed formidable, they are also vulnerable to extended logistic support. The more time spent floating around the Gulf of Oman means continued use of fuel and other supplies. And this most likely is exactly what the leaders in Iran are counting on. For over 1,000 years, first Persia and now the Islamic Republic of Iran have seen invaders perish in trying to cross this timeless territory's vast deserts and seas. Will the Americans be able to overcome the logistic challenge of this land? Only time will tell. The mullahs will wait. And that's today's Value Side. For all of our articles, references, and podcasts, visit valueside.com. I'm David Revell. ValueSide is independently written and researched. The views expressed are strictly my own.